Welcome in Monday edition of OutKick. I hope all of you are having fantastic starts to your week, and you may still be recovering from one of the most epic college basketball games of all time. On Saturday night, we had an absolute barn-burning classic. Gonzaga is 30-0. They are on the ropes. There are so many different plays that you can go to before Jalen Suggs rose up and banked in a three on the final play of the game in overtime when it looked like we were headed to double overtime. I want to start right there for all of you. A lot of you will remember Adam Morrison, the player, I would say, that really made Gonzaga a household name. I know that they had made play runs in the tournament before, but this was the Zags player, Adam Morrison, with Coach Mark Few, that started their really national ascendancy in a big way. And, of course, Adam Morrison losing on the court and starting to cry. He wanted to win so desperately. And this is what it sounded like when Adam Morrison was watching live. Still loves the Zags with all of his heart. This is the Gonzaga Radio Network.
To the right side of the floor, defended by Kispert now. Drives, leans in, the runner comes up short. Juzang, though, rebounds and puts it in. We're tied at 90. 3 seconds left. Here's Suggs the other way. Pull up three for the win. Yes! 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 To the championship game! He knocked from 40 at the buzzer! Yes! The Bulldogs! Wow! Play for a national championship!
And, of course, as you listen to that Adam Morrison call, it's worth going back in time for those of us who are big-time college basketball fans, or at least like to watch the NCAA tournament and remember iconic moments. In 2006, Adam Morrison's Gonzaga team lost in the Sweet 16 to UCLA after they gave up a 17-point lead. And if you remember that game well, Adam Morrison started to cry. He was overcome by emotion while the game itself was still going on. So that, in many ways, that made bucket, I guarantee you, for Adam Morrison, represented 15 years of emotional redemption. And there was so much to unpack from this game. I want to kind of grab some of the highlight moments. First of all, how about Timmy drawing the charge on the final play of the game in regulation, basically, against Johnny Juzang? That call, which I think was the right one, that call, though we all know how difficult it is to distinguish between a block and a charge, particularly in college basketball, the official, I think, got the right call there. But that call decided the outcome of the game. If it had been made incorrectly and called a block, I don't know that you could have said, oh my God, it's an unacceptable call, but Juzang would have been going to the free throw line with 2 shots and only 0.7 seconds left in the game. So the odds of anything happening for the Zags, assuming Juzang, who is a very good free throw shooter, was able to make his shot, their season would have been over. And that would have been another amazing comeback from UCLA, because throughout the course of that entire game, the biggest lead either team ever had was 7. The Zags, I believe, were up 7 in the second half. UCLA was up 6 in the first half. And I tweeted this at the end of the half when Kispert hit the shot to give the Zags a 1-point lead. I said I didn't think UCLA could play any better. They hit everything. They hit more mid-range contested shots in a college football game, college basketball game, than I can ever remember anybody hitting. Juzang was almost indefensible by anyone out there. Kept getting one-on-one matchups, kept finding a way to score, such that, and this is a remarkable stat that goes to the historic nature of this game, such that if you actually break it down, Gonzaga and UCLA combined to shoot 58.2%. That's the highest combined field goal percentage in a Final Four game since the 1985 national title game between Villanova and Georgetown, when the two teams combined to shoot 63%. Now, This is also in a three-point shooting era. So what these guys were able to do from close range, the amount of close range baskets they got, because they didn't necessarily shoot phenomenally well down the stretch run of second half, I would say, from three. I mean, it was just an incredibly well-played game. And I'm looking at the box score right now because I think it kind of brings home how incredible both teams were. UCLA shot 57.6% from the field for the game. Gonzaga shot 58.7%. UCLA 8 for 17 from three, so I misspoke in terms of UCLA from three. The Zags were 7 for 21, which is still pretty good. Neither team was extraordinary from the free throw line, but my goodness, I mean, Gonzaga, for instance, had, this is a great stat, 37 made baskets. 26 of them came with assists. Both teams barely got to double-digit turnovers despite playing for 45 minutes. It was an incredibly well-played game in all respects. I really don't think UCLA could have played any better. And so I think it's worth contemplating, where does this game rank in the historic pantheon of great college basketball games in the last 40-some-odd years? So let's start here and talk about what the Zags had at stake. I misspoke, I believe, on Friday's show when I was talking about teams to enter in to the Final Four undefeated. I forgot to mention Indiana State and Larry Bird, which lost to Magic Johnson and Michigan State in the title game. So since Indiana went undefeated in 1976, since they went 32-0, we have had Indiana State lose in the title game. We have had UNLV lose in the Final Four to Duke in an absolute barn burner, iconic game. We had the Kentucky lose to Wisconsin in 2015 or 16. I'm forgetting exactly what year it was. And now we have had the Zags advance to the championship game against Baylor. And by the way, we've hardly talked about Baylor to start off this show. They obviously were dominant against Houston, and we'll be talking about them a lot during the course of this show as we get you some gambling picks and get you ready for that contest. But all the things that the Zags had at stake, 30-0 with Johnny Juzang with the basketball, makes a great move out near the three-point line, gets into the lane, and runs right into Timme. Let's not forget that Timme, 4 fouls at the time, and took completely over once he got into overtime. So that play was extraordinary, okay? Also extraordinary. How about Jalen Suggs? Borderline, let's be honest, block at the rim that could have potentially been a foul. Tracks down the basketball after his block in the corner, the back right corner of the basketball court. Begins at full speed to get up the court. Manages to make one of the all-time, given the circumstances, one of the all-time great bounce passes that hits Timme in stride and leads to a dunk to put the Zags up 2. UCLA refuses to wilt at all. It looks like they are finished. Instead, they manage to come back from a late 5-point deficit. And in overtime, what I am amazed by is Juzang went to the rim, missed his shot, got the rebound, finished, and then think about this, because this is one of the big discussions I got into last week. And regular listeners will be like, hey, this kind of reminded me of what Clay was talking about. I said, if you look at the history of teams that have been dominant all season long, sometimes because they haven't been in those crucible moments, those we have to have a basket right now situations, sometimes they aren't able to rise to the level they need to when games are actually tight down the stretch. An old school basketball fan out there, I can't believe I say old school now, but if you remember when UNLV was trying to win a back-to-back title and they lost to Duke, in that game, UNLV had been dominant all throughout the 1991 season. They hadn't lost a game. And in that game against Duke, when they got him inside of the phone booth, when they got him into a tight game, so to speak, UNLV crumbled a little bit down the stretch, and Leitner and Bobby Hurley and Grant Hill found a way to get a championship for Duke, which really set the Duke dynasty on the course to which it is still rolling on today. And so I wondered, would the Zags be able to take a punch when they got into that phone booth style game and there was nothing separating them from their opponent, and they had great pressure on their shoulders throughout the course of the game? Would they be able to find a way to get to the championship? And they at least found a way to get to the championship game. But speaking of how well coached they are, right after that Johnny Juzang basket, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, right after that basket, did you notice what happened? Gonzaga didn't take a timeout. They didn't panic in overtime when they had just taken a devastating uppercut from UCLA, and it looked like we were headed for double overtime. They knew exactly what to do. They got the ball out of bounds on the baseline, got a pass into Jalen Suggs moving full speed, and then Suggs was able to rise up and make the shot that he did. Now, I know he banked it in. I know it was a long-distance shot. But the point is that a lot of teams in that situation would have panicked. They would have struggled to get the ball inbounded. They would have not been able to get off a shot to allow them a chance to win the game, even though Gonzaga had not been in that situation with the ball with a chance to win on the final play of regulation in the entire season. They had played 31 games, and this was the first time they had had the ball on the final possession of the game, really. I know they had it for 0.7 seconds at the end of regulation, but you really can't get a shot off in 0.7 seconds because you can't advance the ball in college basketball. And they knew exactly what to do, exactly whose number to call, and Jalen Suggs delivered for them, and Jalen Suggs made himself a star. There's a lot of talk, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later in this week, about college athletes being exploited and all those things. What I would argue to, and I may even argue it a little bit later in today's program, is Jalen Suggs a great example of what you can grab from an opportunity on the national stage. You can't buy the name recognition that Jalen Suggs now has among basketball fans in this country. You can't. Zion a couple of years ago going to college basketball and playing for Duke for a year, you can't buy that either. Your value, if you perform at a high level in college basketball, is infinitely higher when you enter the NBA than it would be if you went to Australia or you went to Europe or you went and played in the G League. Having tens of millions of people watching you, sports fans, and learning your name and feeling a connection to you because of the game they watched you play, which was an epic level contest, the likes of which we frankly don't see very often in college basketball anywhere. The moment met the team, met the man, met the coach, and the Zags found a way to get past UCLA. I don't think there's anything hardly that UCLA could have done better. They nearly played a flawless game against an undefeated opponent. Gonzaga proved they could take a punch and get back up off of the canvas and find a way to win. Now, will it translate into a championship tonight? I don't know. We're going to be breaking it down for you throughout the entirety of today's show. We'll certainly be talking about the national title game, I hope. Another classic between the two best teams all season in college basketball, the Zags and Baylor. That was the predicted outcome for many people, the hoped-for outcome. A lot of times in college basketball, in the tournament setting, you don't end up with the two best teams competing for a championship because they're not able to win 5 games in a row in the first place. We got that in this situation, and I am ecstatic to see what's going to happen tonight in the game between Gonzaga and Baylor. So that is the large-scale discussion.